One of my favorite repeated sayings in the Bible is when God talks about the Israelites and he says that they will be his people and he will be their God. He's declaring that he will be in a relationship with them. He's creating this covenant with his people. And covenant is probably a word that you've heard before, especially if you've been attending church for a long time. But what really is a covenant? A covenant is usually described as an agreement or some sort of term agreement, and it's either negotiated or unilaterally imposed, which binds both parties together in a permanent, defined relationship. And it has specific implications and obligations for both parties. So if you do this, then I will do this. And if you keep up your end, then I will keep up my end. So when we see that God creates covenants, he alone is the one who creates them. He creates the terms and the agreements. And a great part about God's covenant is that they rest on his promises, which we know he'll keep because his faithfulness is a part of his character. Even though God's covenant with Israel required obedience, it also falls under his covenant of grace. And we see that his covenant of grace with his people was in preparation for God to come to fulfill his promises in the person of Jesus Christ. So when he came down, he fulfilled that covenant promise. We see in Genesis 12, verses 1 through 3, God calls Abraham into a covenant with him. It says this: "The Lord had said to Abram, 'Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you.'" So we see that last part, that God says that all people will be blessed through Abram. We see in Hebrews 8 in the New Testament that it says this. It says, "Now the main point of what we are saying is this: we do have such a high priest who sat down at the right hand of the throne of the majesty in heaven, and who serves in the sanctuary, the true tabernacle set up by the Lord, not by a mere human being. Every high priest is appointed to offer both gifts and sacrifices, and so it was necessary for this one also to have something to offer. If he were on earth, he would not be a priest, for there are already priests who offer the gifts prescribed by the law. They serve at a sanctuary that is a copy and shadow of what is in heaven. This is why Moses was warned when he was about to build the tabernacle. 'See to it that you make everything according to the pattern shown to you on the mountain.' But in fact, the ministry Jesus has received is as superior to theirs as the covenant of which he is mediator is superior to the old one, since the new covenant is established on better promises. For if there had been nothing wrong with the first covenant, no place would have been sought for another. But God found fault with the people and said, 'The days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the people of Israel and with the people of Judah. It will not be like the covenant I made with their ancestors when I took them by the hand to lead them out of Egypt, because they did not remain faithful to my covenant, and I turned away from them, declares the Lord. This is the covenant I will establish with the people of Israel. After that time, declares the Lord, I will put my laws in their minds and write them on their hearts. I will be their God, and they will be my people. No longer will they teach their neighbor or say to one another, 'Know the Lord,' because they will all know me, from the least of them to the greatest, for I will forgive their wickedness and will remember their sins no more. By calling this covenant new, he has made the first one obsolete, and what is obsolete and outdated will soon disappear." So we see here in Hebrews 8 that God creates this new covenant, and he takes the old and makes it obsolete through Christ. Because in the old covenant, the agreement was that Israel would remain faithful to God and God would be their God. The old covenant required Israel to remain faithful to God. And because they didn't remain faithful, God turned away from them. But in this new covenant that Jesus is at the center of, we see that God makes them his people again. When God makes this new covenant, it's a covenant of grace. And when we understand that covenant of grace, we come to appreciate God's redeeming love in the person of Jesus Christ, which leads us to obedience.